It started like a perfect small-town celebration. 3 women, 3 cars in the driveway, 3 purses dropped on the floor of a quiet house, a little dog pacing in circles, barking at nothing, and then nothing. No broken door, no bloody crime scene, no ransom note, just silence. In June of 1992, in Springfield, Missouri, a night of graduation parties turned into one of the most unsettling disappearances in American history. People call it the Springfield 3. And the deeper you look into it, the less sense it makes. On the surface, their lives were ordinary. Cheryl Levitt was 47, a hard-working, no-nonsense single mother who had built a comfortable life for herself and her daughter. She worked as a hairdresser, kept a tidy home, and was known for being responsible and reliable. Her daughter, Susie Streeter, was 19, sharp-tongued, funny, independent, the kind of girl who didn't easily let people push her around. Her friend, Stacy McCall, also 19, was almost the opposite, soft-spoken, sweet, a people-pleaser who had her whole life planned out. Graduation, college, a future that felt wide open. That Saturday night was supposed to be about that future. Caps and gowns, photos, hugs, and promises that we'll never lose touch. The evening started out loud and crowded, the way graduation nights do. Stacy and Susie were bouncing from party to party, saying goodbye to classmates, taking pictures, burning this moment into memory. Originally, Stacy's parents thought the girls would sleep at a friend's house after the celebrations. There were talks of sleepovers, too many people, not enough floor space. Plans shifted, as they always do when you're 18 and buzzing with energy. At some point, late into the night, the new plan became simple. Go back to Susie's house, where her mom, Cheryl, would be home, the place would be quiet, and they could crash exhausted after a long, perfect day. Meanwhile, Cheryl had her own quiet night. She spoke on the phone with a friend around 11 p.m., talking about mundane things. A piece of furniture she was refinishing, small life updates, nothing dramatic, nothing ominous. There was no hint of fear in her voice, no sense that she noticed anything wrong. For all we know, when she hung up, she expected to go to bed in a house that felt completely normal. Sometime after that call, her daughter and Stacy drove through the quiet streets of Springfield, heading toward that little house where the porch light glowed. What we do know is this. At some point in those early hours, all 3 of them arrived at the house. How do we know? Because by the next morning, all 3 of their cars were still parked outside. Inside, each of their purses was found in the same bedroom. IDs, money, cigarettes, keys, all there. It looked like they had made it inside, taken off their jewelry, emptied their pockets, and started settling down for the night. Cheryl's bed looked like it had been slept in. The TV was on. Nothing looked like the scene of a struggle. It looked like a freeze frame of ordinary life. But what happened after that, if anything did, left no obvious trace. The first people to notice that something was wrong weren't the police. They were friends and family expecting sleepy teenagers the next day. Stacy's mom woke up early, expecting her daughter home to get ready for a trip to a water park. When calls to the house went unanswered, she got worried. Friends came by the Levitt home, knocked, called out, and eventually let themselves in. The dog, Cinnamon, a small Yorkshire Terrier, was there, frantic and anxious. The house was tidy, the cars were in the driveway, but the 3 women were gone. The details inside the house were not dramatic, but they were disturbing. The front door wasn't smashed in, it was just open, or at least unlocked. A glass globe from the porch light had been shattered, and someone had swept up the broken glass and thrown it in the trash. That alone raises questions. Who breaks a light outside the front door in the middle of the night, and who calmly cleans it up? The blinds on a window were slightly bent, like someone had pulled them aside to peek out. There were no obvious signs of a fight, no overturned furniture, no blood. It felt like 3 people had simply been erased. And then there were the phone calls. As friends and family moved through the house that morning and early afternoon, the phone rang multiple times. One call was described as a crude, sexually explicit message from a male voice. Another came in shortly after. One of Stacy's relatives listened to a message on the answering machine that seemed strange and disturbing. strange enough to stick in her memory. And then, without thinking, she accidentally erased it. That could have been the only recorded clue to what happened in that house. Deleted with a button press. By the time police were officially called and treated the house as a potential crime scene, the scene had already been ruined. Well-meaning people had come in and out of the house, tidied things, cleaned up glass, straightened objects, even wiped surfaces. They were worried, confused, trying to be helpful. They had no idea they might be destroying evidence. If there were fingerprints, footprints, fibers, anything left behind by whoever was responsible, much of it was likely contaminated or gone. In a case where the crime scene was already almost empty of clues, these early actions may have quietly erased the few that did exist. From that moment on, the investigation was playing catch-up. Detectives questioned friends, neighbors, ex-boyfriends, co-workers. They ran down tips, followed sightings, and even chased the idea that the three might have left voluntarily. But nothing fit. Why would they leave their cars, their money, cigarettes that one of them was known to be dependent on? Why would a middle-aged woman vanish without telling anyone on the same night as her daughter and her daughter's friend? The theory that they simply walked away from their lives collapsed almost instantly. So, if they didn't leave on their own, someone took them. But how do you remove three women from a house in the middle of a quiet residential neighborhood without waking anyone up, without leaving clear signs of struggle, and without being seen? One of the leading theories is chilling in its simplicity. Someone followed the girls home, maybe from one of the parties. Maybe they spotted them at a convenience store or on the road. They watched them pull into the driveway. They waited for the right moment, and then they knocked. Imagine this. It's the early hours after graduation. You're exhausted, a little wired, but happy. You're home. Maybe you're in pajamas already. Someone knocks at the door, a stranger asking for directions, a neighbor claiming there's a problem with your car, a person who uses your first name because they overheard it earlier. In a small town, your guard is low. You open the door, maybe you crack it, maybe you unlock it and turn your back for a second. That's all it takes. If a single person with a weapon made it inside, three unarmed women in a confined space could be controlled very quickly. Another possibility is darker and more personal. What if the target wasn't the girls, but Cheryl? She had her own life, her own conflicts, her own history. Some people believe that someone with a grudge or a hidden connection to her used that night as an opportunity. If the person knew her routine, knew where she lived, and saw an opening when her daughter and friend were home, they might have decided that taking all three was the only way to leave no witnesses. It's a theory that raises more questions than answers, but it lingers because so little else makes sense. Over the years, hints and rumors piled up. A van, possibly green, possibly brown, seen near the house. A suspicious man in a parking lot. A construction site where people whispered that bodies might be buried in concrete beneath a new building. Tips came in about specific properties. Dig here, they're there. At one point, there was a push to scan a particular lot where some believed all three could be hidden beneath a slab. Ground-penetrating radar allegedly showed anomalies, but legal, financial, and evidentiary hurdles stopped a full excavation. So even that potential answer was left literally buried. Then there were the confessions, or something like them. From time to time, criminals already in prison hinted they knew what had happened to the Springfield Three. Some claimed involvement, others said they heard stories from fellow inmates or knew the location of the remains. When pressed for details, the stories fell apart, changed, or couldn't be verified. In a world where high-profile unsolved cases attract attention seekers and manipulators, these half-confessions only added noise, not clarity. What makes this case so haunting is not just that it's unsolved. It's the combination of extremely ordinary details and an almost supernatural absence of evidence. Three different women, at three different ages and stages of life, all vanish from the same house without leaving behind a clear trace of what happened. No 911 call, no neighbors hearing screams, no surveillance footage, just a quiet suburban street, 3 parked cars, and a dog that couldn't tell anyone what it saw. Today, decades later, the file is still open. Detectives have retired, new investigators have taken over, and technology has leaped forward. DNA databases, advanced forensics, digital tip lines, all of it stands ready, waiting for that one piece of information that breaks everything open. The families have lived most of their lives without answers, trapped between hope and grief, mourning people who might still technically be alive, but almost certainly are not. And that leaves us with the question that refuses to die. How do 3 women vanish from a house in the middle of a city, leaving behind their cars, their money, their belongings, and not a single confirmed clue to where they went, who took them, or why? In a night that should have been remembered for caps and gowns and beginnings, someone rewrote the ending, and whoever did it has, so far, managed to stay invisible. If you were in that neighborhood on that night, and you saw something that didn't sit right, a van where it shouldn't be, a stranger watching a house, a sound you ignored, you may be holding a piece of a puzzle you didn't know you were part of. And until someone somewhere finally speaks, the story of the Springfield 3 will remain exactly what it feels like now. A house full of normal life, frozen in time, with 3 missing women just outside the frame.